Discover the amazing journey of a homeless black woman who inspired change with 5 Mercedes trucks. Shanelle stood at the corner of 8 Mile and Van Dyke, her heart thudding with a mix of hope and fear. The bustling streets of Detroit buzzed around her, reminding her of dreams that felt farther away than ever. Once, she envisioned a bright future, a shining entrepreneur who would uplift her community. Now, clinging to her frayed notebook filled with brilliant ideas, she was just another face on the pavement. Yet, in her eyes burned a fire, one that ignited every time she glimpsed families passing by, laughter echoing in the air like music, barbecues sizzling nearby. She took a deep breath, the familiar scents swirling around her, a mixture of grilled chicken, fried fish, and fresh cornbread, comforting yet cruelly out of reach. Despite her reality, Shanelle moved with poise, an echo of grace in her every step. She had become a glue that kept her neighborhood together, her spirit resilient against the crushing weight of her situation. Her days were filled with outreach, connecting with charity organizations, and sharing her story, advocating for single mothers and veterans facing heartbreak just as fierce as hers. One brisk afternoon, the fabric of her life shifted. At a non-profit event, she found herself standing in front of a wealthy philanthropist. With her hands trembling, she fanned the pages of her notebook. 5 Mercedes trucks, she stammered, to provide reliable transportation for families in need. Her eyes brimmed with tears as she painted a picture of hope, her vision sparking inspiration that radiated through the room. For a moment, it felt like the world around her shimmered with possibility. Could this be the start? But just like that, the light wavered. A clash with her brother later that night sent her heart plummeting. "You need to focus on yourself, Shanelle," he urged, frustration clouding his words. "What good is a dream when you can barely feed yourself?" His voice echoed in her ears, words slicing through the warmth that had surged only hours before. She stood there, caught in a tempest of loyalty and impossibility, questioning everything she believed. Deep down, Shanelle felt the weight of responsibility. Her family's well-being was entwined with her aspirations. Yet, sitting on the pavement, surrounded by neighbors also feeling the choke of economic despair, she knew her drive extended beyond personal need. She had witnessed the power of community, the strength forged in adversity. As she rallied her neighbors to support her vision, she felt the sting of systemic prejudice, a barrier insidiously whispering that she was unworthy, unqualified. With a deep breath, she pushed harder, tears threatening to spill. This wasn't just about trucks, it was about hope, unity, and the dignity everyone deserved. As the sun set over the city, the golden hues rimming the horizon symbolized the change they were fighting for. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Fists clenched, Shanelle felt the rush of defiance surging through her veins. Could she harness this moment, this burgeoning dream, or would her fear and familial loyalties tether her down? She recognized that the road ahead would be harder than ever, challenges looming like shadows. Would her community rally with her, or would she stand alone at this precipice of change? With her heart racing and the sounds of Detroit still buzzing around her, Shanelle stood at a crossroads, ready to challenge the world, eager for the next chapter of her journey to unfold. Shanelle woke the next morning with a sense of urgency pulsating through her. The rising sun cast a warm glow through the thin fabric of her shelter, testing her resolve. Today, she was determined to gather the support she needed. She had a vision, and she wouldn't let family or fear stand in her way. The sound of bustling traffic outside beckoned her to rise, to act. As she stepped into the brisk morning air, Shanelle found a new energy coursing through her veins. She had lived in this neighborhood long enough to know every corner, every face. The elderly man selling newspapers, the young woman pushing a stroller, the kids who played basketball under a solitary hoop. These were her people. With a deep breath, Shanelle made her way to the park, where many gathered for the morning sun. "Hey, everyone!" she called, her voice breaking through the chatter. People paused and turned their heads, curious about the figure standing confidently before them. "I have something important to share." She pulled out her frayed notebook, flipping it open to the pages filled with sketches and ideas. "We can make a change. Together. I want to provide transportation for families in our community, 5 Mercedes trucks that will help people get to work, get to school, get access to what they need." A murmur ran through the small crowd. Could it be possible? But before she could feel the magic of possibility, a voice spoke up from the back. "Shanelle, do you really think that will work? Who is going to back you on this?" It was Mark, a skeptical friend from the neighborhood, a realist to his core. His words cut through the hopeful energy she had tried to build. "Listen," Shanelle insisted with a fire igniting in her chest. "It starts with each one of us believing that we can change our own stories. I refuse to accept that just because it's been hard, that it always will be. If we work together, we can raise enough support to make it happen." The crowd shifted, some nodded in agreement, others remained doubtful. But Shanelle pressed on. She appealed to their shared struggles, to the hope bubbling beneath their own hardships. "If I can do this, if we can do this, imagine what we can offer our kids. They deserve the chance to thrive, not just survive." Her words hung in the air like a promise. Slowly, hands began to rise. A woman stepped forward, wiping her eyes with a ragged towel. "I'm in. My kids need to get to school safely." Another man, burly yet tender-hearted, raised his hand. "Count me too. I see folks struggling daily. We can be the change." The crowd began to swell with excitement, hope pulsing like a heartbeat. Shanelle felt the warmth of unity wash over her, against all odds. But just as the tide seemed to turn, Shanelle's phone buzzed in her pocket. It was a message from her brother. "I don't want you getting hurt. Stay safe, sis." An ache pushed deep into her heart. In that moment, she wished he could see her strength, her resolve to change their world. How could she convince him to believe, to support her when the path ahead was still shrouded in uncertainty? She took a deep breath, her voice now steady and determined. "This is just the beginning. We'll plan a meeting, draw more people in, and show everyone that we deserve more." As she looked around at the faces of her neighbors, she felt that spark igniting again, and the fear that once held her in place began to loosen its grip. With renewed purpose, she realized this wasn't just her dream anymore. It was theirs. But lurking in the back of her mind was a question: could it really work? Would her efforts be enough to break the cycle of despair? As the sun set, casting long shadows across the park, Shanelle understood no great change ever came easy. Would she find the strength to carry on when the weight of reality threatened to crush her spirit? With determination in her heart, she began to walk toward the horizon, but as she did, a new challenge loomed on the other side. What did the wealthy philanthropist think of her vision now? And what was his true intention for stepping into her world? Shanelle walked with purpose, each step echoing with the weight of her ambitions. The sun hung low, casting a golden hue over the pavement, but she barely noticed. She had a destination in mind, the local community center where she planned to host a meeting for all who had raised their hands in support. The air buzzed with excitement, but underlying it was a thread of uncertainty. Her brother's message replayed in her mind. "Stay safe, sis." As she approached the community center, Shanelle's heart raced. This was more than just a meeting, it was a turning point for her neighborhood. This was where dreams aligned with action. She stepped inside and the familiar scent of old paint and fresh coffee wrapped around her like a warm hug. Seating herself at the head of the long table, she flipped through her notebook again, ruffling the pages nervously. What if they showed up and lost interest? What if Mark's doubts silenced them all? Shanelle pushed those thoughts aside. She had come too far to let fear dictate the outcome now. Minutes ticked by and one by one, her neighbors trickled in. The young mother with the stroller, the elderly man with a paper in hand, all of them filling the room with a mix of anxious energy and genuine hope. Shanelle raised her hand to quiet them. Thank you all for coming. Together, we have the power to change our community. We've all faced struggles, but today, let's turn those into action. A wave of murmurs of encouragement swept through the room, igniting a fire in Shanelle. She detailed her vision, painting a vibrant picture of 5 Mercedes trucks ferrying families to jobs and schools. Faces lit with curiosity, but soon doubts echoed through the hall. Shanelle, this is a lot to take on. How do you even start? It was Keisha, her voice a blend of skepticism and genuine concern. We start by showing up for each other. Shanelle declared, heart racing. And we can bring in the support we need. I've reached out to local businesses and there are grants available for community programs. We pool our resources and passions, and we can make it work. But will they listen to us? Keisha pressed, her eyes scanning the group. A man in his late 40s, James, spoke up. If we don't try, we'll never know. We hear countless stories of people changing lives in these very seats. We just have to find the right angle. Claps erupted in the room and Shanelle felt renewed strength surging through her. As they began to brainstorm, ideas flew, laughter mingled with determination. In every exchange, there was a new promise, connections being made, walls being torn down. Before she knew it, someone was sketching a rough plan on a giant piece of paper. The atmosphere shifted as the community united with a shared purpose. Still, in a corner of her mind lingered the thought of that wealthy philanthropist. What were his intentions? Did he truly believe in their cause? What if he could disrupt all of this with a single decision, flipping their hopes upside down? The meeting wrapped up much later, and Shanelle felt both drained and exhilarated. She gazed at her neighbors, now more than just faces but allies. Yet, the weight of unknowns loomed heavy. Would external challenges suffocate their freshly ignited fire? As she stepped outside, the stars began to twinkle in the darkening sky. Would the town hear their voices? She pulled out her phone, staring at her brother's message, sending a response. I'm fighting for us, for our future. Can you trust me? But just as she hit send, her thoughts were interrupted by a message. Meet me tomorrow at Gilbert's Cafe. We need to talk. It was the philanthropist. Shanelle's heart pounded. What could he want? Did he have ulterior motives? As she prepared for another day of unexpected challenges, the question weighed on her mind: was this the moment that could change everything she had worked for, or would it shatter her dreams? The next morning came too fast, the dawn light spilling through Shanelle's window, casting a warm glow, but all she felt was a cold knot in her stomach. She had tossed and turned through the night, visions of the philanthropist dancing uninvited behind her eyelids. What could he possibly want? Gilbert's Cafe was a hub of activity, a melting pot of laughter and conversation. As she entered, the rich aroma of coffee enveloped her. The soft chatter of familiar faces buzzed in her ears. But Shanelle wasn't here for small talk. She was here to meet someone who could either help her community thrive or derail everything she had fought for. She spotted him in the back corner, Mr. Thompson, the philanthropist. He sat casually, but the presence he commanded was anything but. Shanelle took a deep breath, smoothing her blouse as she made her way over. The world around her dimmed as she focused solely on him. Thank you for coming, he said, his voice steady as he gestured for her to sit down. Thanks for inviting me, she replied, trying to keep her tone composed. Your idea about the community trucks, it caught my attention, he said, leaning back. I want to help. Shanelle's heart raced. This was it. Help how? His smile was almost apologetic. I can offer funding, but I need to understand the full vision first. I want to know what you really want to achieve. As Shanelle shared her dreams, each word wrapped in passion, Mr. Thompson's expression shifted. She spoke of the struggles, the dreams of families, the children's laughter, and the future she envisioned. She painted a picture that transcended mere transportation, a lifeline for her neighborhood. With the right vehicles, we do not only provide rides to jobs and schools but also create community events, serve meals, and reconnect families, she finished, her voice vibrating with conviction. Mr. Thompson nodded, but there was an edge to his expression that sent a shiver down her spine. "And what do you think your community will offer in return?" Was he serious? A chance for empowerment, a voice. They can't just keep taking. They need to contribute, but he raised a hand, cutting her off. "I appreciate your passion, Shanelle. It's admirable. But understand this, philanthropy comes with strings." She faltered, her heart sinking. "What kind of strings?" "Influence, direction. I need to ensure my investment bears fruit. I want to see results." Fear washed over her as she realized the implications of his words. Was he suggesting that he might dictate their path? Her dreams had always been about the community standing together, not someone else picking and choosing how they thrived. "What if we refuse your terms?" she asked, her voice steadier than she felt. "We'll see what happens then." His tone was almost like a warning, and she couldn't deny the trepidation clawing at her stomach. Shanelle blinked, a lump forming in her throat. This was the moment she needed clarity, but the edges were blurring, twisting into a dread she hadn't anticipated. "Think about it, Shanelle," he continued, a hint of sincerity in his eyes. "I'll be waiting. But remember, every decision has its price." As she left the cafe, the sun now hovered high above, yet the light seemed dimmer. Was this the partnership she had envisioned? The weight of uncertainty pressed on her chest, making each breath feel heavy. It was a crossroads. Should she risk the wild chase of change for her community, or could this offer be her way to lift them higher than she had ever dreamed? A cold sweat formed on her brow as she struggled with the decision. With the community's future at stake, she glanced down at her phone. A message from her brother dinged through the silence. "I'm worried about you." "What is going on?" Taking a deep breath, she typed back, "It's complicated. I need your support now more than ever." But deep inside, a rush of doubt surged. Was this really the support she needed, or was it a mistake waiting to unfold? And how much of her soul was she willing to risk in the battle for her dreams? The answer awaited her, but she had to decide quickly. The community needed her now, but what would she sacrifice to be their true voice? Shanelle stood outside Gilbert's cafe, the sunlight streaming down, but the warmth felt distant. She took a moment to gather herself, wrapping her arms around her waist as if it could shield her from the impending decision. Her heart thudded in her chest, echoing her thoughts in the stillness around her. This wasn't just about her anymore, it was about her entire community. They had seen tough times, weathered storms, and yet managed to find laughter amidst suffering. She could see them all now. Faces filled with hope and dreams, memories of her childhood flashing through her mind, the laughter, the struggles, the steadfastness of those she loved. With resolve, she began walking aimlessly down the street, her mind racing. Meeting Mr. Thompson had dredged up a tidal wave of emotions. Could she accept his help and still maintain the integrity of her vision? She reached the park, a small patch of green that served as a gathering place. A few kids were playing, their laughter mingling with the afternoon breeze. Shanelle smiled as she watched them, their innocence shining brightly. But then her gaze drifted to a group of older people sitting on a bench, deep in conversation. They were her community, the backbone of everything. "Shanelle." A voice broke her thoughts. It was her friend Jamila, rushing over, her face creased with concern. "I heard you met with that guy. How did it go?" Shanelle hesitated, biting her lip. "I'm not sure yet," she admitted, her eyes flickering with uncertainty. "You don't sound right," Jamila said, crossing her arms. "You've always fought for us. Don't let someone else dictate our future. We need you to lead. The weight of Jamila's words hung in the air, and Shanelle felt a swell of emotion in her chest. But what if this is our big chance? What if the funding helps us, but at what cost? Jamila interrupted. What if we lose who we are in the process? A sigh escaped Shanelle as she dropped her gaze to the ground. That was the question that haunted her. The stakes felt impossibly high, the fear of failure crawling into her mind. As they sat on a nearby bench, the conversations around them blurred into a comforting hum. Shanelle couldn't quite shake off the chill of uncertainty, but the warmth of camaraderie began to stoke a flicker of hope. I want to create real change, she said, her voice low. But I don't want to trade our freedom for it. Jamila placed a hand on Shanelle's knee. You're not just a voice, you're our voice. Trust that what you've built can stand strong. You don't have to face this alone. Just then, Shanelle's phone buzzed again, pulling her attention. It was a message from her brother. Let's talk tonight. I know you're going through a lot. Looks like I'm really going to need to make a decision. She took a deep breath as she typed back, can't wait. I need your perspective. As the sun began to dip lower in the sky, casting golden hues across the park, Shanelle felt a sense of urgency pressing down on her. She couldn't ignore the doubts and fears, but she didn't have to face them alone. Her community was her anchor, her reminder of purpose. Still, the echoes of Mr. Thompson's words lingered like shadows. What would he demand in return? Would she end up losing control of her vision, or worse, losing the people she cared for? As the day turned to dusk, an idea sparked in her mind, a plan to rally the community and share her fears, to gauge their thoughts before deciding on this pivotal investment. But the question loomed larger: could she unite them for a common cause when the future felt so uncertain? With determination flooding her veins, Shanelle realized she had to act fast. A community meeting might be just the answer she needed, but would everyone support her decision? She pulled out her phone, fingers trembling over the screen as she typed out an invitation. This would be her first step towards clarity, and she hoped it would guide her through the fog of doubt. But as she hit send, one persistent question lingered in her mind: would they embrace the possibility of change together, or would fear hold them back? The answers awaited her, but time was running thin. The sun dipped beneath the horizon, and with each passing moment, Shanelle felt the weight of her decision pressing harder. She glanced at the park, the laughter of children slowly fading, replaced by the soft whispers of the wind. The community meeting would be tonight, and she couldn't shake the feeling that something monumental was on the horizon. As she strode back toward her apartment, her heart raced. What would she say? How could she possibly convey the complexities swirling inside her? Shanelle had always been the one to rally the troops, but now, uncertainty gnawed at her. She passed familiar storefronts, each holding memories of laughter and worry, of dreams realized and dreams deferred. When she finally reached home, the muted light cast shadows across the living room. She sank onto the couch, her phone buzzing once more. It was a response to her meet-up invite. As she opened the message, a knot formed in her stomach. Can't wait to hear what you've got planned. It was from Mrs. Williams, a pillar of the community. Ironically, she didn't know how much Shanelle was wrestling with her own demons. Mrs. Williams always seemed unwavering, a bright beacon in dark times. Initially, Shanelle wanted to dial up her best friend and voice her frustrations. But it was time to delve deeper, talk to the residents, hear their desires and fears firsthand. She grabbed a notepad and pen, jotting down key points she wanted to cover tonight: her visions for the community center, but also her worries about potential strings attached. As dusk settled over the neighborhood, Shanelle prepared herself. She adjusted her shirt in the mirror, her reflection revealing a woman ready to fight for her community. But who would she be fighting? Was it Mr. Thompson she feared? Or was it her own doubts creeping in, telling her she wasn't enough? The clock ticked ominously, each second pulling her closer to the moment. She scooped up her keys and forged ahead, determined to face the crowd. At the community center, excitement hummed in the air as familiar faces filled the room. People she'd grown up with were gathered, their expressions ready for change. Shanelle stepped forward, her heart thrumming to the beat of hope and anxiety. "Thank you for coming," she began, her voice steady but tinged with emotion. "I invited all of you because I believe we have a chance to do something incredible, but I'm scared." The room quieted, her honesty striking a chord. "I met with Mr. Thompson," she continued, their eyes intensely focused on her. "He came with promises of funding for our center, but it felt too good to be true. I don't want to lose what makes us who we are." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Shanelle's throat tightened, but she pressed on. "I want to know what you all think. Your voices matter more than any money." Jamila smiled encouragingly from the back, and that small gesture pushed Shanelle to keep going. Each face held stories of borrowed time, of hope stifled and dreams revived. Voices began to rise, sharing their fears and ideas, painting a vivid picture of what the community center could evolve into. But amidst the excitement, someone raised a hand from the back. It was Daniel, a younger member of the community. "What if the funding changes everything? What if we lose ourselves in the process?" Her heart sank. Daniel's words echoed the very fears she had been wrestling with. Could this new path possibly erase their identity? The room fell silent again, and a heaviness filled the air. Then, without thinking, Shanelle responded with raw, unfiltered emotion. "I believe we can bring change without losing who we are. We can grow while still standing firm on our roots." A flicker of hope danced in the room, but doubts lingered still. As the discussion continued, Shanelle was surprised by how much everyone had to share. Old grudges, dreams of new beginnings, and a collective desire for empowerment began to intertwine, and she felt driven to unite them. Yet deep down, a thought tugged at her: was she strong enough to convince them all? Would they come face to face with opportunities and still hold on tight to their identity? Uncertainty loomed in the air as her phone buzzed again, bringing her back. It was a message from her brother: "I'm on my way. You need to hear this." Her heart raced. What did he know that she didn't? As the room buzzed with energy, Shanelle felt a new urgency rise within her. The outcome of this night could change everything. Would they forge a new path together, or would the shadows of doubt pull them back? The answer was closer than she imagined, but time was slipping through her fingers. Shanelle's heart pulsed as she scanned the room. Every face told a story, and every moment buzzed with the thrill of possibility. The flickering light overhead reflected the growing warmth between her and the crowd. She could sense the hesitation, but also an unmistakable spark of hope. A voice piped up: Liam, a veteran with deep lines on his face, each one etched by years of struggle. "Shanelle, is this funding really what we want? What if it comes with strings? We've fought too hard for independence." His question hovered in the air, heavy and urgent. Shanelle took a breath, feeling the weight of his history pressed against her. "I hear you, Liam. This community has always been about self-reliance. But think about what we could do with maybe we don't need to think bigger, but deeper," someone else chimed in. It was Maya, her eyes flickering with passion. "We've built this place with love. If we lose that for money, where does that leave us?" Shanelle's mind whirled. Their worries felt valid, and she was suddenly surrounded by a whirlpool of conflicting emotions. There was something beautiful about this moment, how the past was anchoring their future. Nothing could be settled tonight. Let us not forget the positives. The inviting voice belonged to Mrs. Williams, who had remained quiet until now. "With assistance, we can expand our outreach programs. Think of the kids who need us. Think about the community center becoming a safe haven. We can elevate our identity, not erase it." Her words ignited a flicker of hope but also sparked new anxieties. What if this path overshadowed their essence? What if growth meant losing something they cherished? Before Shanelle could respond, the door swung open, and her brother, Malik, stepped in. His presence filled the room, drawing everyone's attention. The room quieted instinctively. Malik had always been the steadying force for Shanelle, his unwavering support like a lighthouse in dark waters. "I'm glad to see everyone here," he said, a smile breaking across his face. "Shanelle, we need to talk." "What is going on?" she whispered, pulling him to the side. Malik hesitated and glanced around, wary of others listening. "I found something about Mr. Thompson's proposal. There's more at stake than just money. You need to know before we go any further." The swirling chatter began again, voices climbing over one another while Shanelle's pulse quickened. Just when they were starting to find their voice, now this? "What do you mean?" she pressed. "Let us talk after the meeting," he replied, the urgency etched in his features. Shanelle turned back to the crowd, her heart half asleep. "All right, everyone, let us keep the conversation going. We're not here to overlook our values just for what sounds nice. Your thoughts, your feelings, they matter more than anything. What do you really want from this center?" The room breathed as one, walls of uncertainty crumbling slowly. Voices arose, bold and laced with dreams. Their ideas mingled amid thoughts of hope and fear, a tapestry weaving together their future with their past. "Art programs for kids," shouted someone. "We need a food bank," another chimed in. "Let us ensure it is a space for everyone, for those who feel voiceless," said Jamila, eyebrows raised in determination. Every idea painted a new picture, one radiating communities intertwined, yet standing bold individually. As the energy shifted, Shanelle felt the fire blooming within her. She could see a vision, one vibrant and alive. But beside her, Malik's worried gaze pushed against her joy. What did he know? The question buzzed around her mind, unsettling her spirit. She had to stay focused. "Let us make this center ours, one that reflects the heart of who we all are." Just as the voices of hope crescendoed, her phone buzzed again, vibrating between her fingers. An alert flashed, urgent news regarding Mr. Thompson's funding. Shanelle's breath caught. Was this what Malik meant? The energy in the room felt electric as she turned to her brother, an anxious knot forming in her stomach. What awaited them in the shadows of decision? "Everyone," she called out, "we might need to confront something unexpected." As the air thickened with tension, the true fight for their future hung in the balance. Would they rally together, or would doubt and fear tear them apart just when they were starting to come together? Shanelle felt the weight of the room pressing down on her. Tension danced in the air, wrapping around her like a thick fog. She glanced at Malik, his brows furrowed, a silent plea for her to listen to what he had to say. The excitement that had been building in her heart dimmed, replaced by a nagging sense of unease. "Is everyone ready to dig deeper?" she asked, her voice stronger than she felt. The room nodded, a mix of anticipation and apprehension swirling in their expressions. "We've been through too much to be swayed by shiny offers," Liam said, his voice steady and filled with conviction. "But knowledge is power. Let us hear what Malik has discovered." Shanelle took a step forward, intentionally breaking free from the hold of her brother's anxious gaze. "All right, Malik, what is going on? You've got our attention." He took a deep breath, his own heart racing. "I started looking into not just Mr. Thompson's funding, but his connections. It goes way beyond just money. His project, it has ties to bigger corporations. Some have a history of exploiting communities like ours." Gasps echoed around the room, each one a ripple of shock and disbelief. Shanelle felt her stomach drop. "Exploit? How?" "They're interested in our land, our center, and it looks like they want it for a flashy development project. It could erase everything we've built," Malik said, his voice dropping to a whisper, as if just saying it out loud might make it real. The room erupted. Voices of anger clashed with despair. "We can't let that happen," Maya shouted, her eyes shining with fierce determination. "We won't let them take our home." Shanelle fought to maintain control, raising her hands. "Everyone. We can't act out of anger right now. We need to absorb this, process it." "Process what?" "The fact that our community is once again at risk?" Liam's voice, usually so grounded, shook slightly. "Yes." Malik interjected, his urgency rising. "But we also need a plan. We can turn this situation into a rallying point. If we stand together, if we make our voices heard, maybe we can drive them away." What felt like a whirlwind of emotions had settled into something resolute. Shanelle could feel the fire igniting once more among her people. Each idea filled the room like fuel. They were turning their fear into strength. "We can organize a community meeting," Jamila suggested. "Spread the word and get everyone involved. Let us gather evidence, tell our stories. Maybe the press will take interest. We deserve a say in what happens here." "Yes," Shanelle said, her heart swelling with pride. "Let us showcase who we are. We need to show them that this center isn't just a building or a project. It's our identity, our lifeline. We refuse to be silenced." As the crowd began to murmur agreements, Shanelle caught Malik's eye. There was a glimmer of hope behind his worry. The idea filled the void that had briefly settled in her chest. "Can we meet here again, tomorrow night?" Malik asked, scanning the room for nods. "To plan and mobilize everyone who cares about this center and our community?" "Yes." The voices rallied, echoing in a sweet melody of determination. They were no longer just discussing funding, they were reclaiming their narrative. Just as the excitement began to crest, Shanelle's phone buzzed again. With a mix of anticipation and dread, she glanced down. Another alert flashed, developing story regarding Mr. Thompson's project community response needed. The air felt charged with urgency, and the reality of their situation locked tight around them. In a split second, Shanelle realized the power they had in their hands could either ignite change or slip away. "What if this is the moment we redefine our future?" she thought, a storm of emotions colliding in her chest. "Everyone," she called out, placing the phone down, "let's turn this into a movement. Let us show them we are strong and united. Tomorrow is just the start." But the question lingered in the air: how far were they willing to go to protect what was theirs? The next day, the sun sank low in the sky, casting a golden hue across the community center as Shanelle stood in front of the crowd. Eager faces filled the room, each one burning with a mixture of hope and determination. Word of the meeting had spread like wildfire, as whispered conversations turned into bold promises. "Thank you all for coming," Shanelle began, her voice echoing through the space. "What's happening is bigger than all of us. Your presence here shows that our community cares, that we are ready to stand for what belongs to us." A ripple of agreement swept through the crowd, several people nodding and murmuring their support. "First off, let us talk about our stories," Malik interjected, stepping up beside her. His expression was serious but passionate. "Each of us has our connection to this center. These connections are our strength. They can't take our past, our memories, or our purpose." As people began to share their stories, Shanelle listened intently. Each tale painted a vibrant picture of laughter, struggle, and resilience. From Maya describing her first dance class there to Liam recalling how the center had provided shelter during tough times, it became clear that this place was more than just walls and a roof. A sense of solidarity filled the air. Shanelle felt her heart race with every heartfelt share. "We have the power to tell our story to the world," Jamila said, her enthusiasm infectious. "We can gather testimonials from everyone. People will listen. This is our moment to make them see our strength." Malik added, "Let us create a video. Let us showcase our lives here, what this place truly means to us. If the media gets a glimpse, they may just start to care." Excitement rippled through the crowd. They started tossing around ideas like popcorn flyers to distribute, hashtags for social media, and plans for a peaceful protest. Shanelle felt the spark of change illuminate the room, igniting something deep within her. Suddenly, loud shouts erupted outside. Startled, everyone turned. What they saw made their blood run cold. A group of men, dressed in sharp suits, stood at the front entrance, blocking the way in. They were clearly representatives of the development company, their presence a dark shadow looming over the spirit of the gathering. Shanelle's stomach twisted. This wasn't a coincidence. They knew about the meeting. Malik scanned the crowd, concern written across his face. "Stay calm," Shanelle said, her voice more commanding than panicking. "We need to show them we won't be intimidated." Cautiously stepping forward, she stepped into the light outside. With every step, the thrumming beat of her heart echoed in her chest, but she would not falter. "What do you want?" she demanded, facing the men head-on. One of them, a tall man with slicked-back hair, smirked at her challenge. "We wanted to clarify some facts regarding Mr. Thompson's project." "You really think a few stories will change anything?" His arrogance made her fists clench. "This center isn't just some project to us." Shanelle shot back, anger igniting her voice. "It's our home, our lifeline." His smirk evaporated, replaced by a glare. "You'll regret this. We can't be stopped. We own this town." Shanelle took a step closer, defiance radiating from her. "No. You don't own what we built with our hands and hearts. We'll fight for this, and we'll make sure everyone knows the truth." Behind her, the murmurs of support grew louder. The rest of the community joined her, standing side by side with their brave leader. The crowd began chanting, their voices intertwining like a powerful anthem of resistance. But within her, a flicker of anxiety sparked. She knew this was only the beginning. Will the strength of their unity be enough to stand against corporate power? She thought, as the intensity of the moment surrounded them. And as the sun began to set, casting long shadows, Shanelle wondered if they were ready to risk everything to protect what was rightfully theirs. Shanelle stood firm, surrounded by her community, each heart beating in sync with a rhythm of defiance. They were no longer just individuals standing against a wall of suits, they were a fortress of resilience. The men outside still glared, their presence an unsettling storm cloud shadowing the hope they held. "Let them hear us," Shanelle shouted, her voice slicing through the tension. "We are not afraid. This is our community, and we will not let someone else dictate our future." An electric charge surged through the crowd as they joined her in a chant, "Our home. Our story." The echo filled the streets, reverberating off the very walls that held their dreams. As the standoff continued, Shanelle felt a swell of determination. Families depended on this center. Kids relied on the programs they offered. Alyssa, a single mom at the front, held her daughter's hand tightly. "I bring my child here to learn and grow. We deserve this place," she cried, her voice ringing with raw truth. Each declaration stirred the crowd. The group of men, their corporate bravado faltering, shifted uncomfortably. They likely didn't expect this level of resistance. Shanelle took a deep breath, channeling her nervous energy into strength. "Let us remember why we're fighting," she called to her neighbors. "Our stories need to be told, and together we can shine a light on what this center truly represents." From the back, Liam stepped forward, his voice unwavering. "If we show them who we are, they won't stand a chance. We're more than just a neighborhood, we're a family." The crowd erupted in support, their approval creating a swell of hope that surged through Shanelle. But her heart raced at the thought of Mr. Thompson's proposition lingering in the background like a haunting whisper. How much longer could they hold this ground? What if they lost their unity in the face of relentless adversity? The noise of the crowd's rallying cry masked her doubts. She felt like she was in the middle of a storm, yet right now, it was essential to forge ahead. Our next step is to gather the media," she declared, resolution solidifying within her. "Let us show them who stands here today. We have to let the world hear our voices." Hands shot up, passions ignited, and the crowd grew louder with ideas. Eager murmurs turned into organized plans, flyers, social media campaigns, and local news contacts. They were a thunderstorm brewing, ready to unleash a deluge of truth. As they turned their focus outward, Malik joined Shanelle again, intensity radiating off him. "I reached out to some reporters. They're gathering nearby. I told them we have something to say." "Perfect," Shanelle replied, excitement coursing through her. But even amidst the fervor, she caught a glimpse of uncertainty flickering in her brother's eyes. "What's wrong?" she asked softly. "It's just this fight could get ugly," he replied, a weight hanging between them. "Those men won't back down easily. But if we band together, they'll see just how powerful our voices are." "Exactly," she insisted. "We're stronger together. We can't let fear dictate our path." With each heartbeat, she felt the certainty solidifying. "We will show them we're ready to fight, no matter the costs." Slowly, the group gathered their momentum and began to move down the street towards the community center, an unyielding wave of strength. Shanelle led the charge, fingers intertwined with those of her neighbors. As they approached the center, the representatives tried to block their path again, faces lacking the confidence they had just moments before. "Back off," Malik shouted, standing resolute beside Shanelle. "We have a story to tell. You can't suppress us any longer." A woman emerged from the back, a journalist with a notepad clutched tightly, her expression a mix of determination and hope. "What's happening here?" she asked, turning to Shanelle. It was the moment of truth. Shanelle drew a deep breath, feeling the weight of her aspirations and fears alight in her chest. She could feel every gaze pressed against her, the hopes, the fears, the dreams of every person she had ever cared for pushing her to speak. "We're fighting for our home. This center isn't just bricks and mortar to us, it's a vibrant community that we've built together, and we refuse to lose that." The crowd erupted in cheer as Shanelle spoke, her heart pounding in her chest. The journalist glanced at her, excitement gleaming in her eyes. "I want to hear more. Your community's spirit is infectious. Let us capture this right now." And just like that, their voices began to flow. Stories, tears, laughter, all the moments that made the community real poured out freely. Each person shared dreams tied to the center, hopes for the future, and the determination to combat anyone who threatened their shared legacy. As the words unfolded, Shanelle felt a wave of clarity wash over her. They were no longer faces forgotten by society, they were a testament of strength, kinship, and empowerment. This was the dawn of something powerful. When the day finally faded into night, each story echoed in the air, lingering like the fading light, a reminder of their shared purpose. They had fought for their voices, and they would keep fighting. And in the depths of her heart, Shanelle knew this was just the beginning of a transformation that reached far beyond her initial dream. The community center remained theirs. The power lay in their unity, their willingness to face fear head-on, and their love for one another. As the night air settled, Shanelle glanced around at the faces of those she loved. Each spark of determination whispered a promise. They would continue to stand together, redefining what it truly meant to be a community, and though challenges would arise, they would face them as one. Shanelle smiled, radiant and full of hope. Together they would create change that would echo through generations. Together, they would lift each other up. This was their moment, and they wouldn't let it go. Beneath the stars shining brightly above, she made a silent vow, they would keep fighting. Because the strength of one could fade, but the strength of many? That was an unstoppable force, carved from love, hope, and unyielding resolve. These were the stories worth telling. And she was just getting started. Don't let this amazing journey end here. You need to subscribe now to catch the next inspiring stories that will uplift you. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help others find this incredible transformation. Comment below your reactions, feelings, and what you'd do in a similar situation. And don't forget to share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness the power of community. This is the moment to show your support. Your engagement can spark change.